Okay, so here's part B, pre-flight action for flight. For IFR, flight not in the vicinity of the airport. How can the use of the PAVE checklist during pre-flight help a pilot to assess and mitigate risk? So you can just kind of answer this in a way that's personal, but use of the PAVE checklist provides pilots with a simple way to remember each category to examine for risk during flight planning. The pilot divides the risks of flight into 4 categories: pilot, P; aircraft, A; environment, V; and external pressures, E. There's PAVE. So the pilot: are you ill? On any medications? Stressed? Have you had alcohol within the last 8 hours? Fatigued? Emotional? This is where the I'm safe checklist comes in. Are you proficient or current? That's all pilot. Stuff that applies to you, about to take off. Or not. Your aircraft. Is it airworthy? Is it equipped for the flight? Do you have the necessary equipment? Are you proficient in the aircraft? So it's kind of, you can think about how pilot and aircraft might relate, and the performance capability of the aircraft. That might be, is it able to climb for the particular SID that you might be flying? I don't know. But stuff that would apply to the aircraft. Environment. Are there weather hazards? Any convective activity? Type of terrain. The airports and runways to be used and the condition of them. Are they wet, snowy, dry, grass, whatever? So pilot, aircraft, environment, and external pressures. Any meetings that you really got to get to. You've got get there-itis. Probably not a good thing. People waiting at your destination. Again, same thing. A desire to impress. This is no good. People will be impressed by you flying an airplane. You don't need to do anything outside of normal. Desire to get there. Again, get there-itis. So pilot, aircraft, environment, and external pressures. Something to go through on your PAVE checklist. All right, explain how to use a personal minimums checklist, or how the use of it can help a pilot control risk. So go ahead and as soon as possible, get a personal minimum checklist, or just kind of Google, like a calculator for your personal minimums. One of the most important concepts that safe pilots understand is the difference between what is legal or current in terms of the regulations. Oh, excuse me, we're talking about regulations, not you. And what is smart or safe in terms of pilot experience and proficiency. One way a pilot can control the risks is to set personal minimums. What comes to mind for me on this a lot is actually wind. Wind can be pretty gnarly, and you just want to kind of just what's the most wind I've flown and how comfortable was I, and just be well aware that if you had gusting 14 and you were uncomfortable, that's probably a limit. If you had gusting 30 and you were okay, well, be careful with that one. But anyway. So, and do this for each risk category. These are limits unique to that individual pilot's current level of experience and proficiency. Your examiner is probably going to ask you if you have established your own personal minimums. So do this before your check ride. All right, what information must a pilot in command be familiar with before a flight? This is our list. So we have the NW craft checklist, the information that you need to be familiar with. This is part of your flight planning for an IFR plan. And you'll do this, of course, for your instrument check ride, but be careful, because if you are just on ForeFlight, come up with a flight plan really fast, you still want to be attentive to this. Any NOTAMs, there's N of NW craft, NOTAMs, weather reports and forecasts, known ATC traffic delays, runway lengths at airports of intended use, alternatives available if the planned flight cannot be completed, fuel requirements, takeoff and landing performance data. Again, remember NW craft. I would memorize that list and just say it assertively in the way that I just did. All right, what are the fuel requirements for flight and IFR conditions? You need to have enough fuel to get to your destination or airport of intended landing. You then need to have enough fuel to fly from that airport to an alternate airport. And then guess what? You need 45 minutes after that. So fuel to get to your destination, fuel to your alternate, and 45 minutes of fuel after that at normal cruising speed. Okay. Before conducting an IFR flight using GPS equipment for navigation, what basic pre-flight checks should be made? All right, here's your pre-flight preparations before conducting an IFR flight with GPS equipment. Verify that your GPS is properly installed and certified for the planned IFR operation. Verify that the databases have not expired. This is your nav, train, obstacle, and stuff. So make sure your databases are current. Review GPS and WAS NOTAMs. Review GPS RAIM availability for non-WAS receivers. Make sure that you know your GPS, by the way, is a WAS is WAS enabled. Review operational status of ground-based nav aids and related aircraft equipment, such as has there been a 30-day VOR check. This is appropriate for the route of flight to be flown. Terminal operations, instrument approaches at the destinations, and alternate airports at ETA. Okay. Also, determine that the GPS receiver operation manual or airplane flight manual supplement is on board and available for use. So this is just really just information about your GPS. Make sure it's properly installed. Databases are current. Check those NOTAMs. Make sure there's RAIM availability for non-WAS receivers. If you're using a 430 or 530, it's probably you have WAS, but be sure. Check ground-based nav aids. I know we're talking about GPS, but make sure you have a backup. And then just make sure the operating manual's there, just in case. All right, so what is RAIM? Can you explain the function of RAIM? Well, the first thing that's really good to just remember is Receiver Autonomous Integrity Monitoring. Just kind of get in a flow of that, or a nice rhythm. Receiver Autonomous Integrity Monitoring, or RAIM. It's how a GPS self-monitors. So a self-monitoring function performed by a TSO 129 certified GPS receiver to ensure that adequate GPS signals are being received at all times. Okay, the GPS alerts the pilot whenever the integrity monitoring determines that the GPS signals do not meet the criteria for self-navigation use. When is a RAIM check required? Let's talk about RAIM a little bit more. TSO C129 or non-WAS equipped aircraft. If TSO C129 non-WAS equipment is used to solely satisfy the RNAV and RMP requirement, GPS RAIM GPS RAIM availability must be confirmed for the intended route of flight, route and time, using current GPS satellite information. All right, if you've got WAS-equipped aircraft, that's TSO C145 and C146. If you have this WAS equipment and it's used to satisfy the RNAV and RNP requirement, the pilot or operator need not perform the prediction if WAS coverage is confirmed to be available along the entire route of flight. Outside the U.S. or in areas where WAS coverage is not available, operators using WAS receivers are required to check GPS RAIM availability. Kind of a lot of subtle stuff right there, okay? What is comforting for me is to know that I live in the U.S. and I am using a GNS 430W. It's WAS enabled. What do you do? Okay, if in the event of a predicted continuous loss of RAIM of more than 5 minutes or any in part of the intended flight, the flight should be delayed, canceled, or rerouted where RAIM requirements can be met. Pilots should assess their capability to navigate in case of failure. All right, more about RAIM and then we'll be done with it. What are several methods a pilot can use to satisfy the predictive RAIM requirement? Operators may contact a FSS to obtain non-precision approach RAIM. Briefers will provide RAIM information for a period of 1 hour before to 1 hour after the ETA. So contact an FSS. Use the SAPT, Service Availability Prediction Tool. You can find this at sapt.faa.gov. Third-party interface that incorporates FAA and VOLP Center rain prediction data. And use the receiver's installed rain prediction capability.